Oh boy, this Nintendo leaker just teased some absolutely huge, exciting announcements for Nintendo Switch 2 and what I assume is going to be a big July Nintendo Direct. Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and it is indeed looking like we have this Nintendo leaker here teasing some pretty significant announcements from Nintendo to probably be shown off during a big July Nintendo Direct. And I think these are going to be some very exciting announcements that many of us will really enjoy. So that's what I want to get into this time. But before going forward, let me point out I have this goal to reach 60,000 subscribers. So if you find yourself enjoying my content, your subscription is appreciated. So the leaker in question is none other than Nashweedle. And as we have been discussing lately, Nashweedle is continually getting things right about Nintendo Switch 2. They've been correct about Donkey Kong Bonanza, they've been correct about Metroid Prime 4, they've been correct about Elden Ring Tarnished Edition, it seems Assassin's Creed Shadows, the Nintendo Today updates, how Nintendo will be handling Switch 2 editions, the recent free Switch 2 upgrade of No Man's Sky, and more. The list keeps growing here, and this is just recent things that have been correct in these last few months. And Nashweedle has said a few things on Twitter recently that kind of have me thinking they're teasing some pretty exciting stuff here. So here we have this post from this morning from Nashweedle where here he says, Aún no se han lanzado todos los anunciados, pero la nueva oleada de anuncios de juegos Nintendo Switch 2 Edition puede que está más cerca de lo esperado. So it looks like what he's saying here, and I'll just translate it for those who want to read through. Not all the announced Switch 2 editions have come out yet, but it looks like even more, a new wave, are on the way. And what's interesting, looking at this list here, we actually have dates for all of them but one, and that's Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. But we've been thinking lately that we're probably pretty close to getting a release date. Almost certainly it would be announced in the next Nintendo Direct, which we, at this point, are assuming will be in July. Recently, we've seen that Nintendo has begun rating Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, as we're seeing from these advertisements here. So the game may be close to ready by this point, and they may have a good idea of the actual exact day that they plan on putting this game out. Which, interestingly, actually matches up to a leak we heard from Beat 'em Ups during his Nintendo podcast about a July Nintendo Direct happening, where he said we'd be getting a release date for Metroid Prime 4. So I just think it's interesting how some of these things are lining up here, how we're hearing from one apparent leak that there's supposed to be a release date for Prime 4, which admittedly is predictable. However, the fact that we've also just recently gotten ratings for Metroid Prime 4 does support the idea. But anyways, the point of what Nashweedle's getting at here is that he's saying a new wave of Nintendo Switch 2 editions are about to be announced, which to me sounds like he's saying that they're gonna have a Nintendo Direct where they will be giving us even more Switch 2 editions to be excited about here. So what Switch 2 editions could those be? Now, looking at the ones we have so far, we got Breath of the Wild and Tears in June with Mario Kart, Jamboree's coming out next month in July with Donkey Kong, and then in August we're getting Kirby and the Forgotten Land alongside Dragon Drive. But what's coming out in September? Is September Metroid Prime 4? We already know Pokemon's October. Could we maybe be getting an announcement for another Switch 2 edition to come out in November and also December? What might those be? At this point, we don't know, but I have been kind of thinking something, and some of you may already realize what I'm getting at here, but it looks like Nintendo has a plan to perhaps have a Switch 2 edition game and a new Switch 2 game come out every single month of the year, obviously since launch. So this first month, we have the Zelda editions, we have Mario Kart, and next month is Donkey Kong and Jamboree. The month after is Kirby and the Forgotten Land alongside Dragon Drive, and we already have two more in Pokemon and Metroid. They just need to add two more editions to fill that up. And we already know about some Switch 2 exclusive games like Kirby Air Riders, but there may be a few more exclusives for Switch 2 announced in the next Nintendo Direct. A Switch 2 edition I would like to see, though, would be for Bayonetta 3. I think that's a game that would benefit from having a nice visual and performance upgrade on Switch 2. And I guess I should note here that Nashweedle, while he is showing Nintendo Switch 2 edition games, it could be the case that he might also be referencing some third-party ones as well. Witcher 3 Switch 2 edition has been rumored by Beat 'em Ups for this supposed July Nintendo Direct, so that may be factoring into what Nashweedle is getting at here. But it is not just Switch 2 Edition games that Nashweedle has seemingly been teasing for this upcoming apparent July Nintendo Direct. And by the way, just for the record, for those who aren't caught up on the situation, we have two different rumors about this July Nintendo Direct. One from Beat 'em Ups, another from Attack the Backlog, who said from a trusted source who has gotten things right about Nintendo Directs before that there's supposed to be a July Nintendo Direct, and apparently also September 1, which, historically speaking, makes plenty of sense. And so let me show you this tweet from Nintendo of America a couple days ago. It's just Nintendo of America sharing this nice little tweet of Animal Crossing saying vibing. And a lot of people were paying attention to this, asking questions, wondering if this has anything to do with like an Animal Crossing for Switch 2. And I didn't think so. But I think part of the reason people were thinking this is because we did have that leak from Beat 'em Ups that said that there would be a teaser for Animal Crossing in the next Nintendo Direct. And now people are thinking, oh well, is now Nintendo subtly teasing things? Is there something going on here? I myself have noticed more Animal Crossing things on the Today app, but I understand that random things show up all the time, and also maybe there's a little bit of confirmation bias there, because now that Animal Crossing's in my head, now I'm noticing the Animal Crossing things. Totally possible. But Nashweedle quote tweeted this Nintendo tweet and just said ha 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 with a laughing, teasing, tongue out emoji there. Which to me does read as, alright, he's laughing about something, and I don't think this picture on its own or is quote tweet worthy on its own, unless there is this thinking that, yeah, Animal Crossing for Switch 2 is going to be announced fairly soon. Now, something that would be disappointing, and I'm just going to point it out here, is that instead of getting a new Animal Crossing, we just get a Switch 2 edition of Animal Crossing New Horizons announced, which might be nice, but I feel like, you know, the more exciting thing would be just a brand new Animal Crossing, and of course Nintendo's going to need to announce some big exclusives for Switch 2 in the next Nintendo Direct, I would say. And for those that don't know, a couple years ago, here you see the post from March 12th of 2024, so more than a couple years ago, Nashweedle put out a leak express talking about the next Animal Crossing, presumably for Switch 2, and that it will be coming out in the year of 2026, and here he talks about some of the game concepts. You'll be able to move around controlling vehicles, there will be large cities with skyscrapers, adventure missions, puzzles, and mini-games, and a more collaborative multiplayer. Which sounds great, honestly makes Animal Crossing sound even more inviting to me personally. And so, his leak from a couple years ago is matching up to the Beat 'em Ups leak about this July Nintendo Direct. And what's also interesting here is that we have this post from Instant Gaming who's talking about this leak. It's in Spanish, but yeah, it's there, right? And we see that Nashweedle's in the thread supporting the notion. They're not backing down from Animal Crossing being announced soon, on it coming out in 2026. It seems like, yeah, an Animal Crossing for Switch 2 is being teased by multiple parties here. It's gonna be in the July Nintendo Direct. That seems to be the implication. And from what we've heard of this game and all of the different things going on with it, it sounds like an exciting version of Animal Crossing that I'm probably gonna get into. I played Animal Crossing New Horizons, I enjoyed it, but I will also admit I didn't play it to completion, or whatever that means. I only put in about 30 to 40 hours, which is not enough for Animal Crossing. With these changes that have been supposedly leaked about Animal Crossing, with the minigames and the adventures and stuff, I think I can see myself diving further into this one. And yet, there is still more that is apparently getting teased here for this July Nintendo Direct. And it may be the case, and this might be me tooting my own horn here, but until it's actually proven, it's not really a toot, because it may not be true. But it looks like Nashweedle again agrees with what I think is happening. And as you can tell here from this bit of art, it's Luigi's Mansion 3. Nashweedle here says, lo de Luigi's Mansion 4 in Switch 2 va a ser una locura. Basically just saying that Luigi's Mansion 4 on Switch 2 is going to be crazy. It's gonna be amazing. It's gonna be hype. And so, is he teasing something, or is he just excited about the general future? There is some room for debate there, sure. But to kind of fill you in on what's going on with Luigi's Mansion 4, in case you're unaware, Next Level Games every 3 years, consistently comes out with a game for Nintendo. Now they're wholly owned by Nintendo, but even before then, they were coming out with games for Nintendo very consistently. In 2013, it was Dark Moon for 3DS. In 2016, it was Metroid Prime Federation Force for 3DS. In 2019, even though they had to transition over from 3DS sporting 240p resolution games to Switch sporting 1080p games, it was a huge leap in technology, yet they still managed to maintain their 3-year pattern of releases with Luigi's Mansion 3. And then in 2022, we saw the release of Mario Strikers. And so here we are in 2025. To launch your Switch 2, I think there's a need for some other games. Next level games, if they are to maintain pace, we need to come out with a game this year. And we've actually seen that early this year, Next Level Games started hiring for a new project, which suggests that they are now ramping up for their next game and possibly also wrapping up their current project. And in September, it's also Mario's 40th anniversary, with the next Mario movie coming out early next year. It makes sense to have some pretty big Mario offerings during this period of time. Luigi's Mansion 4 might fit really well, especially if 3D Mario needs a little bit more time before it comes out, we assume sometime next year. And also interestingly, Pokemon Legends ZA comes out October 16th, 2 weeks removed from the end of the month, where Thursday would be just a day before Halloween. And by the way, Nintendo released Luigi's Mansion 3 on Halloween. So we could be seeing a scenario where the exclusive title for October could be Luigi's Mansion 4. The Switch 2 edition, as we discussed earlier in the video, is Pokemon, and the big exclusive is Luigi's Mansion 4. 2 weeks afterwards, that's a healthy gap in between. Comes out Halloween, Luigi's Mansion 4 makes a lot of sense for that period of time. There's a lot of interesting things lining up here. Of course, it is just a theory. We don't know what Next Level Games is working on. We don't know if they're going to come out with a game this year. But I would assume that Luigi's Mansion 4 is their most likely project that they've been working on, given the success of Luigi's Mansion, and the need to put out something big Mario Universe related early on for Switch 2. This is probably the best bet in terms of what they're working on. And yeah, like I said, their pattern of releases suggests that they should have a game ready this year. Doesn't mean they actually will, but that's what it suggests. But Nash Riedel now putting this out there, with him also teasing other things about this direct left and right, like with Animal Crossing, the Switch 2 editions. It really has me thinking this is what may be going on here. Now, some other considerations. We've recently talked about how the Metroid Prime art book has been delayed to October, which has led some of the people to believe, and myself even consider the possibility, that maybe Metroid Prime 4 is coming out in October. And if Metroid Prime 4 is coming out in October, in this late October time slot, then it's definitely not Luigi's Mansion 4. It's one or the other, not both. I think one of those could fit in that Halloween period, 2 weeks after Pokemon Legends ZA. Now, I understand some people are going to say, oh, no way you're going to put out 2 games in the same month. Like, listen, there isn't any hard rule that Nintendo's only going to put out 1 game per month. In fact, most years, October, November, December, we see multiple published titles from Nintendo in a particular month. We've seen multiple major releases come out a month during this period of time. And as I've also pointed out, we have seen this pattern where there is a Switch 2 edition game and a Switch 2 exclusive game coming out every month. Now, Pokemon and Metroid are brand new games that have a Switch 2 edition, so maybe they might be treated a little bit differently. But also considering that it looks like they're coming out closer to the holiday period where sales are going to ramp up, then that might explain that away, where they can still have an exclusive come out during that same period of time. So anyways, imagine we get this July Nintendo Direct. They give us the updates on the games we already know about. We get a release date for Metroid Prime 4. But they also announce Luigi's Mansion 4 to come out this holiday as well. Be it October, November, or whatever, because obviously they also have to think about when Metroid Prime 4 comes out. Maybe that's a September release. We get 1 or 2 more Switch 2 editions announced. Maybe Bayonetta 3, maybe Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. I feel like that game deserves to have an enhancement given it came out this year, and some people are waiting to play an enhanced version of it on Switch 2. I am. At least a free upgrade would be nice, as they've been doing with a lot of other games. And then they also tease Animal Crossing for next year. That would be great. I think that would be a pretty nice Nintendo Direct. Now, here's just a bonus consideration that just occurred to me as I was finishing up this recording here. A pretty good option for another Switch 2 edition game could be a new Fire Emblem offering. Because before, when I was thinking about there being a new wave of Switch 2 Edition games, I was thinking about games we had already gone on Switch 1, but like Metroid, like Pokemon, there could be another new release that is going to be coming out for Switch 1, but will also have a Switch 2 Edition, and we are pretty lacking in Switch 1 titles for this year. There have been very few announced, so maybe Nintendo wants to announce another, but it also makes sense to have a Switch 2 Edition, and perhaps that might be this long-rumored Fire Emblem remake we've been waiting so many years for. Just a thought I'll put out there as a potential Nintendo Direct announcement we might see. Now, some people might be asking, well, what about 3D Mario? What about Zelda? Those things will come, and maybe fairly soon. I think a September Direct might have at least one of those. But what do you all think? What do you make of these latest potential teases? I look forward to what you have to say in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.